this is Kiara Jade. We're going to be talking, why am I so tempted to get back with my ex? What is going on with my ex and why am I so drawn back into that relationship again to start over with them again? I'm sure you've either been through this personally or you know someone who's been through this when you just see a couple break up and get back together and break up and get back together. And it just seems like this revolving cycle. But what is it that is drawing us back in when we talk about our ex? So I think there's a lot of factors that can play in here. It might have been that you were broken up with and maybe you're struggling with that. Or it might have been that you did the breaking up with and then suddenly you're feeling really sad and really uncertain and unsure, and you're just not sure why this amount of sadness has kind of hit you all of a sudden, when potentially if you were the one doing the breaking up, you thought it might have been the right move or the right decision. And I guess in those scenarios, that's when we really start to stop and question, did I make the right decision in breaking up with my ex? Why do I feel this way? And we're looking for a reason to try and piece the puzzle together, right? So I think one of the reasons why we tend to keep going back to our ex is because they represent a sense of safety for us. So our brain is wired to go towards safety and connection and where we feel comfortable, essentially. And sometimes what we perceive as safety can come from past experience. So maybe, usually in our family of origin, we've seen relationships play out between our parents, and this is what we know. And often what we know becomes our sense of safety, even if it isn't necessarily a great situation. So for example, if you're in a family dynamic where maybe the dad is more of the dominant one and what he says goes, and you've kind of learnt that potentially in that situation, if you back down, that's something that might help deflect that conflict and stop that conflict situation. So then in your romantic partners, you're going to feel a sense of safety around a similar situation to what you've grown up in. So if you've seen someone who they're not happy with someone standing up against them, you've learned to maybe back down. And so that's often what we learn is something we feel safe around, feel comfortable around, because we know how to handle that situation. We've grown up with it. We know how to manage the conflict in that situation. And this is the reason why sometimes healthy relationships feel really suspicious to us, because we're not even sure why this person would be really kind to us and really nice to us if it's not what we've known in the past and it's not what we recognize as safe in our own minds. So we're going to keep going back to our ex-partner because they feel safe to us, because we know them, we know their flaws, we know what they do, what their bad side looks like, and we know how to handle that because we've probably been with them for, 6 months, a year. So if we know that our partner gets really grouchy when this happens, we can manage that and we can sit with that, and it feels like a sense of safety to us, being able to go back to that same partner again as opposed to someone new, because someone new, I guess, has that sense of, I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't know what this person likes and doesn't like. I don't know how to keep this relationship going with someone new because it's a whole new world. It's a sense of uncertainty. And I guess that's what plays on our minds subconsciously. If we feel uncertain or unsure in our relationships, often we will self-sabotage to kind of not have to deal with that uncomfortable feeling. Whereas our ex will sometimes offer us this sense of certainty of, I know this person, I know what dating them is like, and maybe I'm remembering all of the good times that we had at the exclusion of all of the bad times, and that's what's drawing me back in. So often when we get dumped, I think because it's a bit of a shock and we're a bit uncertain within ourselves, we do tend to look back at the really positive times, and we do tend to focus on what we've lost and what's missing, because we need to grieve that relationship. And often this means that we will search for that ex-partner again to kind of work through that and get back in that relationship again, to go back to the good times, even though maybe there was a reason for that breakup, or maybe that there was something we needed to work through in that breakup or in that conflict in order to make the relationship stronger. And often we'll have this mindset where, if we get back together, things will go back to normal and things will be all fine. And sometimes they do for a short while. When you do get back with someone, you get like a little taste of that honeymoon phase again, where things were really great and there wasn't any problems. And I think that's what the hardest part is, when the kind of reality comes crashing down, when we have gotten back with an ex-partner and maybe the same thing's happening again. I think another part of it is we don't have to be vulnerable with an ex-partner because they already know us. They've already kind of witnessed us when we're upset or when something goes wrong. Whereas putting yourself into the dating game again, maybe when you haven't dated for, say, I don't know, 5 years since your partner and you used to be together, that's scary, you know? You have to put yourself out there. Yeah, like maybe you're jumping on the online dating apps and potentially the dealing with the rejection of it all and not knowing if people are going to like you, having to deal with the people who ghost you and the people who aren't great on dating apps and in real life is a challenge and is something that often I find you have to work yourself up to doing. So there's this part of us that doesn't want to sit in that vulnerable, uncomfortable space and would prefer to, I guess, go to an ex because it's just something we already know. We already have been through it. If we can get them to agree to get back with us, there's that less of a sense of vulnerability there and a less of a sense of having your pain points triggered if you are rejected. The third point that potentially might impact why you want to get back with an ex, or why maybe you've continually broken up, gotten back together, broken up, gotten back together, you might have some codependency that might be coming up into play. So if we have codependency, sometimes that means that being in a relationship is a point of protecting us and looking after us, and it can be a coping strategy and a coping mechanism as well. So what that can mean is that if we do get broken up with, or we break up with someone, it hurts because we've just ripped out our coping strategy. We've just taken what we've been using to help us feel happy about things, and kind of it's kind of exploded, I suppose. The relationship just no longer is there. And so if we've broken up with someone and we have a bit of codependency in us, and we prefer being in a relationship and we prefer not being on our own because we don't like being alone, that's going to trigger a lot of emotion and a lot of sadness in us. And often it's this emotion, this heavy, dark, not feeling happy and not knowing how to fix that not feeling happy, that gets us running back to our exes. Because if we see them as our source of happiness and suddenly we've been broken up with or the relationship's ended, that's a natural thing in us that wants to go back towards whatever that thing was that was making us happy. And I guess with codependence, usually it's that relationship partner that's making us happy. We're looking for it externally to know that we're lovable and that we're enough, and that partner normally gives that to us, even if there's other issues in the relationship. So you might have broken up with someone, you know that, I don't know, maybe there's a big conflict in your values and you love your family and they're not really a family person, and it's a bit of a clash, and that's why you've broken up with them. So you might have other difficulties, but because that sense of feeling alone and feeling unhappy within you is there once you've broken up with them, you're going to be more likely to want to get back with them, even though that other problem that you originally broke up with them for is still there. It still hasn't gone anywhere. Being away for 6 months probably hasn't changed anything. And even if you are broken up with, I guess there's always that what if situation, which is that codependency. It's like, what if we got back together, maybe things would be great, or what if I changed, or what if I did things differently this time? Our subconscious mind will always convince us that it is worth going back if we have elements of codependency in our makeup. And sometimes it can be really hard to maintain that distance and actually step away from the relationship when you have been broken up with, or when you have broken up with someone else. But I want you to know that that's not a character weakness. That's just codependency. Like, we just need to be aware of what it is and how it affects us. Drop us some questions if you've got any questions, or let me know if there's anything else you'd like me to chat around this topic about.